Hello, I'm Larry, and I'll be your personal trainer throughout the course. My job is to help you understand. After each chapter, you will see me, and I will help you sort through the chapter you just finished and ask questions to see what you've learned. Let's review Chapter 1. We studied body structure parts and realignment. We explored full frame and unitized body, structural components, and dimensions. In this chapter, we learned that frame damage is very common, and there are various types of damages to address. We should also understand that learning to evaluate frame damage is essential. Your understanding of frame correction is critical to growing as an appraiser. I'm all about bonuses, so here's one more. Note, repairing full frame damage is a little different than repairing unitized frame damage. One of the major differences is that a full frame repair will allow you to apply heat with a torch to soften the steel during the frame pull. On the other hand, when repairing unitized body frame damage, no heat is permitted because heat will crystallize and harden the metal. Unitized metal is designed to soften or crush on impact. Alright, let's see what you've learned. It's the dreaded quiz time. How would you arrive at a reasonable setup and measuring time? Choose one answer. Time's up. The correct answer is B. In most markets, the labor time is calculated at 2 to 2.5 hours at local prevailing rates for your setup and measure. Okay, here's another challenge for you. Using the formulas below, match the correct group of parts by short names. Okay, I hope you picked A. It's okay if you didn't. That's why we're here. Let's move on to the next chapter. Or if you'd like, you can go back and get a better look at frame repairs, and I'll see you in Chapter 2. Alright, let's look at Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, you were introduced to several areas and parts. We discussed parts selection. We defined the 4 main parts terms. We identified the difference between headlamp and headlights. And we took a brief look at suspensions and suspension parts. Soon you'll become familiar with auto parts and know how to recognize parts groups. For example, if the part is inside the vehicle, that's the group. After you establish the group, then locate the section, such as the dashboard. If dashboard is a location and you're hunting for a radio, look for that category. It would be under electronics. Learning parts groups and their locations are key to your success as an appraiser. Let's see what you've learned. Hello and congratulations! I have a job for you. If you don't mind, could you please connect the parts associated with the common group? For example, front seat belt, left quarter panel. That would be incorrect because the quarter panel cannot connect to the seat. Or can it? I don't think so. Please select the correct group below. The correct answer is B. Always connect the dots. Pay close attention. Let's move on. Okay, Larry here again. Let's just quickly address 1 or 2 high points and move on. In this chapter, you should have learned that repairing a vehicle could take several directions depending on the severity of damage. We were also able to explain how repair and corrections can be approached. This led us to several illustrations and scenarios on how to simplify. Chapter 3 gave us an overview of damage severity using photos and recommendations as it relates to repair versus replace. During this exercise, you had an opportunity to use your choice and decision-making skills. Remember, there will be many instances when you will have the opportunity to repair or replace. However, think carefully, don't rush your decision, and take more time for research if needed. Remember to study the damage, confirm replacement parts, and calculate turnaround time, because these few points should keep you on track. Let's move on to the next chapter. Bob will give us the next outline. Oh wait, before we leave this segment, let's take a short quiz. Why? Because I'm the teacher you love to hate. So, what does the term turnaround time mean? Choose one answer. Are you ready for the answer? The correct answer, A. Good job. Alright, you're halfway there. It's that time again. Let's recap what you learned. In Chapter 4, we learned about blending and paint variations, and we addressed various types of paint blending and color matching. This chapter also explained paint correction. We discussed why it's not good practice to blend black, red, and white colors in your initial estimate. Remember, when inspecting solids of this nature, keep in mind these colors may match, or if there's a need to blend, you will have an opportunity after the painter has confirmed the need for it. Now, just a quick note on that, on initial estimates, there's an allowance that you can add to an initial estimate if you are concerned about the paint matching. It's color tint, and yes, it's okay to allow for color tint. 0.5 in the refinish column is the average allowed. I have a quick question. What is a current match remedy by paint manufacturers on paint variations? The answer is C. Paint manufacturers added additional variation codes, and this enabled the painter to match the correct variation. The result, the correct base color to achieve the color match. You tired of looking at me yet? Anyway, in Chapter 5, we evaluated flood damage and vehicle scoping. This chapter covered the collection of information while writing an estimate and a few basic principles and procedures along with best practices for beginners. We first had an in-depth look at collecting correct data for your estimate product. We also learned techniques in a systematic approach. And we learned how important it is to list damages in an adequate sequence using a technique unique to you. Appraisers should establish their own systematic scoping technique, and they should do what's comfortable for them. However, in this chapter, we shared simple solutions and techniques that will help you in your writing sequence. We also covered bikes and provided simple solutions in acquiring parts and data to complete an evaluation. Remember, bikes are not difficult. It's simply learning the parts and collecting the proper data. During a flood evaluation topic, we discovered that there are several types of floods. We learned the importance of gathering the correct information as it relates to water type and/or height. We addressed the need to carefully distinguish between the various flood levels. By covering this, we were able to share with you a basic approach used as a formula nationwide. Remember to confirm flood types and water levels. While evaluating flood damage, we were also able to visit flood-damaged engines. You should have an idea of what steps to take immediately after arriving at the shop or at the home of the customer. Communicate with your manager when necessary. Okay, let's see what you've learned. It's time for another quiz. Among the group of words below, select the term that better describes a brackish water flood. Choose one answer. Okay, C is the correct answer. Floodwater from a hurricane that takes land-merging water types, flooding areas that has swamps, oily creeks, sewers, and chemicals. Hold on, don't go anywhere just yet. Another quick question. Which of the following is the best identification of flood levels as we learned it? Choose one answer. Time's up. B is the correct answer. Think about it. What did we say about water levels? Up to the rocker, number 1. In the floor 2-3 in, number 2. Up in the seat, number 3. And number 4 in the dash. Hey, it's me, Larry. Let's recap what we've learned, or should have learned, in Chapter 6. Our attention was centered on several areas. One area was to define the difference between partial and total burns. Later, we learned where to find the VIN, identification numbers. We reviewed biohazard techniques, and we reviewed the passive restraint systems, like airbags. To begin with, we started out analyzing some minor causes of partial burn, particularly electrical. We studied how electrical systems can malfunction, and occasionally dash fires will erupt as a result. We learned how to apply a unique process to complete an evaluation and appraisal when you have limited data to work with. During our review of Chapter 6, we also studied vehicle identification numbers and their locations, addressing the 2nd, 3rd, and 8th digit locations. For example, the first digit indicates where the vehicle was built. The 2nd and 3rd characters identify the manufacturer, so forth and so on. Knowing VIN number locations is vital to your inspection. If you do not get the VIN, this will result in a poor inspection. If at all possible, a number should identify the vehicle you are inspecting. Overall, this chapter should have given you a clear vision and approach you can take when faced with total burns, thefts, and biovehicles. Move on to Chapter 7. I'll meet you there. Chapter 7 was an interesting chapter. Well, at least I thought it was interesting. You had an opportunity to learn and define paintless dent repair. You reviewed PDR techniques, different types of hail damage, lighting, and its effect on hail damage. The purpose of this chapter was to familiarize you with paintless dent repair. It's important to know paintless dent repair pricing and calculations. There are many variables since hundreds of vendors have individual pricing and procedures that differ. Remember, in keeping with standards, keep your money size magnets accurate and follow your dent chart to keep consistent. Stay with your client guidelines. Let's take the second to last chapter quiz. How is hail dent size and dent count calculated? Choose all that apply. Okay, the correct answer is E, which is A and B. Remember, half dollar, quarter, nickel, and dime money magnets are used to size measurements. In the standard industry, dents are counted in increments, 1 to 5, 6 to 15, 16 to 30, and up. If that was your answer, you were paying attention. Good job. Now let's wrap this up. Larry here. Can you believe it? You made it! You just completed the last chapter before the big exam. In this chapter, you were able to define total loss. We had an in-depth look at ACV and its terms. This chapter begins by making you aware of automobile options. It was important to discuss the necessity of locating all options possible. Options can be hidden on a vehicle. Some options can also be missing on a vehicle. Some vehicle options tab may list certain options that are available. However, they may not be installed. It is very important to gather all additional information possible on a vehicle, either from the customer, dealer tag, or VIN tag information through outside data sources. The next section covered the conditioning of the vehicle. This particular instruction is putting emphasis on the need to address body conditioning, starting with either interior or exterior. There was quite a bit of information in this chapter. Take a close look at this final section as you will face totals early on as an appraiser. One thing I would like to bring to your attention, tires and depth gauge. Utilize your depth gauge while conditioning a vehicle. The reason to gauge the tire is to capture the final remaining tread in order to properly calculate value left in that tire, and any depreciation. In our final segment of this chapter, we had a look at total loss process and arriving at an actual cash value. Try to remember when closing out a total loss that it is up to you as the appraiser to closely inspect the entire vehicle start to finish, inside and out. Keep in mind there are several formulas in arriving at a total loss percentage. Some states have no threshold. Be vigilant and observe all state rules and regulations. Let's appreciate the moment. You just completed 8 chapters of intense training. You are now ready to test your overall understanding of this training. But just before you do, let's go over some of the key points in this training. Although they are all highly important points, there are a few key takeaways. You first need to understand the body's relationship to its parts, like a human. Familiarize yourself with how a vehicle body and parts are damaged and corrected. Understanding velocity and structural behavior after impact is also a plus. Take advantage of all your resources. Display sound judgment in repair versus replace. Pay close attention to details when closing your final product. Not to worry, my friend, you will develop a true gift in determining how damage is corrected. Continue your education in this field and it will pay off. Hey, it's been fun working with you. Good luck.